Okay, thank you everyone. Don't worry, my presentation's quite quick. It's not as long as the others. My name is James Godfrey. I have been working at WeYield for 5 months. And my background is working for tour operators, TUI, online travel agencies, Apodo and lastminute.com. And prior to working here, I worked for a pricing data vendor that collects the data for us actually. So a lot of my experience has been in managing and working with rate vendors to collect pricing data, mainly in pricing parity actions rather than revenue management, but it's similar to some of the stuff that you guys do. I'm excited today to introduce our new Rateshop module, which we rolled out about 6 to 8 weeks ago now. We presented it at the Paris Academy 1 month ago. And this is a new functionality, new module that we've added to the tool that gives greater control over our clients' rate shopping activities. So why have we added a new feature to do this when we previously did rate shopping anyway? Well, typically with most of our clients, we agree on a rate shop schedule. So we have a meeting, we discuss the main stations that we're going to shop for them, the websites, the competitor websites, brokers, brands, etc. The schedule of the shopping, whether it's a daily, a weekly or monthly activity, and also the number of pickup dates and days of the week that are chosen as part of the collection. And typically, our goal is to automate the process that was typically done manually by most of our clients in order to free up time so that they can just analyze the data rather than spend time looking on sites and manually writing down prices. So that process, we calculate a cost, and sometimes it's the same monthly cost all year round for some of our destinations. For some of our other clients, it's a seasonal shopping demand. So in high season, they might do some really big shopping, whereas in low season, they're relaxing, they're taking time off, they're going on holiday, in which case they reduce the shopping requirements and the bill accordingly. And what we do is after we provide a quote, the quote is signed off from their end, they get approval, and we invoice on a monthly basis. We invoice at the start of each month, and they pay the bill by the end of the month, and we do the shopping in the meantime. But what we encountered is that when we first start talking to customers, they have one plan in mind, and in terms of who they want to do rate shops on and how frequently. But typically that changes a lot, and it changes according to seasonal demands, new events being announced, etc., etc. And what we found is that clients would come to us and say, we've agreed to do this rate shop, but actually I need to change it now. So then we'd have to go through the process again of calculating the number of shops or searches or requests, creating a quote. They then have to chase approval at their end for billing, and we'd have to adjust everything, maybe even adjust the invoice schedule. So we've created a new module, which is a prepaid module, a bit like a pay-as-you-go or prepaid phone bill, where you buy in advance credits or shops, which you can then use as and when you want to use them. And I'll go into more detail about what that looks like. So yeah, this new process is going to be better for some customers who want more flexibility, whilst others will be happy to just stick with the old setup that we have, which is particularly good if they're shopping the same things every week anyway, because then you build up some really great pricing history that can go into like the pricing-based reports that Naomi hinted at earlier in her presentation. But we also see this as a time saving. Say you want to do some additional activity on top of what you've already previously agreed, you can prepay the credits and then just use them when you want to. So it's giving our customers a bit more flexibility and a bit more autonomy, really. So yeah. So what does it look like? So what is the Rate Shop Planner? So for those familiar with our interface, it's a new module on the left-hand side of the screen. It's a new screen that they can see. And I'll go into this in a bit more detail soon. But effectively on this screen, you get an idea of your credit allocation, as well as a forecast of your potential usage based on what you build in the system. And you can see here rows for each of the different requests, and each request can have different criteria, different destinations, different sites, different competitor sets. as well as a different collection frequency. So for example, you could set up a daily search for your lates market, your next 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, where 50, 70, 80% of your demand comes in, which you could do daily or 3 times a week on maybe your top 2 destinations or your 80-20 rule. At the same time, you can create other searches that maybe you only run once a week, which look maybe further out, or they look at special dates in the future that you're not regularly collecting. So you can do a deep dive on what's happening over the Christmas period, or how does August next year look, for example. You might want to build that, run it for a short while, switch it on and off. It's very flexible. So let's, and all the results that we collect, they'll be fed into our standard reporting, which hopefully a lot of you have seen, our graphing and our ranking reports, which are supported by the alerts, which trigger a reminder for you to check that when the data's come in. Okay, so I mentioned that it's a credit-based system. In terms of the cost, it's effectively the same per shop or per request shop that you would currently pay if you're an existing client. The credits that you buy in advance, they don't expire, so you can use them at your ease. If you don't use them in 1 month, they just keep rolling over to when you use them. So we expect some clients will do a lot of high season activity, and then they'll probably leave it for a while during low season while they focus on other activities that they have. So let's have a look at this a bit closer. So this is the screen that you would typically see if you're logging for the first time. Along the top, this account here was allocated with 100 credits back in September. You can see here that nothing's been planned because nothing's been built yet, so nothing's been used. And that's the same for October along the top. But the system's clever. As you build the requests and you schedule them, it can work out how much of your credits you're likely to use, and also if you kept that same shopping schedule, what it would use in the next month. And also, if you've bought some in the past and used them, it kind of tells you what you spent last month as well. We have 4 tabs that I'll go into in a bit more detail shortly. We have the edit tab, where you create your requests and you schedule them, deschedule them, etc. Your planned queries, so it gives you an idea of what's running when and the impact on your credits or your prepaid allowance. Query history, so you can see what happened in the past. If you have multiple users using your allowance, you might want to understand on which days a lot of your big shops are being done. And then also there's a tab here for credit history, which combines both of when you're loading new credits as well as when you're using them. So, and also in the top right-hand corner here, we have a question mark. For the first time you use it, if you click on this, it actually gives you a link to a tutorial video that Emmanuel's created that just reminds users how to use the tool. So if I click on a new request, it brings up a row of data. At the moment, this isn't populated. This query or this search isn't populated, but in the next stage we click edit, and then we have the ability to add the shopping criteria. So here's one we prepared earlier. As you can see here, this is showing that it's calculated. It's going to cost 160 credits or 160 shops each time it runs. And this is based on 2 stations that have been chosen. These, I can never remember these airport names, but they're Guadalupe and Martinique airports. The durations that the test client chose here was 7 and 14 nights. That's probably typically their main durations they sell. You can create any, you can create 1, 3, 5, 7, whichever durations are important to you in the stations that you choose. The pickup time and the checkout and the checkout time can be specified. So typically the websites we scrape, they either use hourly or half hour. I think Expedia uses 15-minute intervals, but we generally recommend choosing times according to when your cars are usually picked up. You could match that to when the flights arrive, for example. In terms of the websites, in this instance, where the customer's chosen to look at rental cars from a French point of sale and also from a UK point of sale. We have access to over 250 scripts in various points of sale. So we should have all of the brand sites. pretty much most of the brokers I think we have, and lots of OTAs as well. So it's quite a comprehensive list. I know that there's some markets that we've identified where we're missing perhaps some of the points of sale, but we may find that the .com is sufficient if there isn't geo IP pricing in that region. That's something we need to investigate further. Next, you choose the criteria for the number of weeks in advance you want to shop. So in this instance, it wants to look, every time it runs, it wants to look the next 10 weeks into the future. And in this instance, they've chosen to have Tuesday and Thursday pickups only. Some customers do every day of the week. Some pick maybe a weekend and a midweek just to get a difference in pricing, to get an idea there. You can search basically up to 52 weeks out. We can do up to a year out currently in the system. I'm sure we could adapt that to do even longer if you wanted to. I have heard of corporates in the past trying to do searches up to 2 years out in advance to see really advanced pricing. But here you would select what you want to select. So maybe for a lates market, 4 weeks. Maybe if you want to do a really big deep dive of what's coming up this year, you might want to do 52 weeks as a one-off test just to see if there's any interesting pricing trends where people are pricing themselves ahead of the market, for example. We also have what we call fixed dates. So this might be special events, conferences, Christmas dates that you know aren't covered by your typical, in this case, Tuesday and Thursday pickups. Maybe Easter dates, maybe Saturdays in next August. You can go through and you can highlight those here. So when you click save, it's calculated the number of shops. Along the top here are the days that this test client wanted to run this. I've seen some every day of the week. I've seen some clients do a Monday test and then an end of week Friday test. So it depends on how often you want to do your collections effectively. Of course, the more times you do it, the more it costs you, but then you also build up a pricing history as well, which could be interesting for the future, for future analysis. Okay, so in terms of once you've created a few searches, it's calculated how much each search or each query will cost you each time it runs. And based on that, in this instance, from 633 credits available, it's saying that you're planning to use 560 in the current month, and this is slides from our September Academy. It also shows you that if these same searches were running in October, it's potentially going to cost 952. The system's quite clever as well. If you have what we call rolling dates that overlap with fixed dates that you've chosen, by the time the rolling dates catch up with the fixed dates, the system is clever enough to dedupe those so you don't capture the same data point twice. But it's very good to help you really get an idea of your usage and your costs. So you can really sort of predict how much you're going to need. The credit usage warning also helps as well. So in this instance, quite a lot of activities planned. It's actually telling you that it would need a 920, but you've only got 633. What happens in this instance is it will keep collecting as per the schedule. But then if it gets to a day where, for example, there's 42 shops on one and 120 shops on another, 162 shops, and maybe there's only 150 left, the system at this stage won't know which of these searches is more important, so it just won't run either of them. Potentially in the future, we could have a prioritization system. This is just the first release of the product, and I'm sure it'll evolve as per your feedback. The planned queries tab basically summarizes by day for the next 2 weeks how many total credits will be used across the queries that are scheduled and how much is remaining. So you can see the drop as they're used up, and also a warning here when you're going to run out. The query history tab basically shows you what you used in the past, and if it was successful. They're usually all successful, but it just gives you a count by day. And finally, the credit history combines both the additional, this client purchased 1,000 credits, and they've been using up certain credits on selected days. Finally, there's what we call a master or planner settings. And these are settings that just determine when these rate shops will occur. So in this instance, they're scheduled to happen every morning at 10 a.m. Paris time, and the data is all collected in euro currency. You can change this. Some of our clients do just after midnight, some do 4 a.m. in the morning. Some people maybe want an afternoon search, so they know everyone else has already done their pricing for the day and they're just checking theirs after everyone's made adjustments, so they might schedule it for the afternoon. And these settings impact all of the searches in that category. Perhaps you might want to set like a 7 or 8 a.m. so it's ready for your 9 a.m. when you're at your desk and you want to check your prices. So let's just quickly jump to a demo. This is our demo account. We've got quite a lot of credits that we've loaded to play with here. We have one active request that runs twice a week. We have what we call deactivated requests, which may or may not still have a schedule, but because they're deactivated, they're not going to run by accident. So you can restore them just with a click of the button if you want to restart them again. So you can build all of your requests in advance and just take them below the screen just to hide them until you need them effectively. The building a request is very quick. Click on new request. We've got a new row here. Click on edit. We now have the functionality to name the request. That came back from our Paris Academy. It would be useful to know what I'm looking at. So maybe we could call this the daily late search. Then we add our stations. So I'm just going to pick some places based on the rooms. So we've got Keflavik, maybe Greece, maybe Vienna. You can choose as many stations as you want. For the moment, the tool only supports airport locations, IATA codes, but we do, through our older method of rate shopping, we can support downtown locations as well. There's some extra mapping we have to do, which is why we haven't introduced that to this tool yet. Let's now pick some durations, maybe 1 days and 3 day rentals. We'll add those. I'll leave the checkout and the check-in time as the same. Websites, probably something like a rental cars will be of use. Various different points of sale here. Maybe we'll pick UK. Potentially you might want to, I don't know, look at a French one, a French broker there, or a French OTA aggregator. We have all of the usual suspects, Expedia. We also have stuff like car rentals as well as the brands Europe Car and Sixt, etc., etc. There we go. Rolling weeks, I'll just do this, say, for the next 4 weeks here, and maybe I'll just do it for 1 Saturday and 1 midweek just to get an idea of pricing. And I could also add on fixed dates. It brings up a calendar. Then you can pick, I don't know, Christmas Eve. I click save. It's now calculated it as 162 searches. Actually, I want to edit it again quickly, and I actually want to add a schedule. So maybe I want to add this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Click save again. So this is now scheduled. It'll run at, I think it was 10 a.m. Paris time, every time it runs. And you can see the impact on the planned shops that it's had here. If I like the look of this and I just want to adjust it slightly, have a similar search, you can actually duplicate the search and then edit that rather than creating a new one. So maybe I want to have one that runs on Tuesday. That's actually potentially for a different duration, or maybe even just for a big one, maybe further out. Maybe your Monday search is the big one, and then for the rest of the week, there are only small ones for the next 4 weeks. But you can do that quite easily just by doing that. And once again, it calculates the number of shops or credits that it's going to use, and it's on a Tuesday schedule. And we'll probably see the impact on the planned shops for the month and the next month. So that's about it for this one. It's a new feature we've added. Hopefully it adds a bit more flexibility to what our customers were asking for. We have seen some clients are looking at a hybrid model, so they've still got their scheduled stuff running, but they've also just got a small allowance just to do some ad hoc queries of their own on top of that activity. We've actually seen some other clients have completely shifted away from the monthly billing and just pre-purchased lots of credits and just they're going to go full self-service from now on. So, and I'm sure extra features will come in the future. We've had some discussion with some clients about the ability to have a shop now button, which in theory we know we can do. It's just in the next iteration of this as this evolves. And in terms of the results, let's go into a pricing report here. I should have had these open earlier, really. This is an example here of one of the pricing reports that's run. It looks like it's picking up Fridays and Saturdays for the next, well, till mid-January, and then some further out dates, April in this instance. Conversely, this is one that we ran recently for a demo account. In this one, we did a big search for the next 90 days, so it should hopefully load soon. Just while this is loading, any questions for me? Because I have rushed through the tool. Yep.
CAPTCHA. How do you get around the CAPTCHA?
So, yeah, so we don't do our rate scraping ourselves. We did try it in previous years, I believe. Yep. So we actually use a vendor. The company I worked for before joining here, a company called QL2. It's my belief that there's only really a couple of companies out there that can do rate shopping properly on a big scale. I've worked with some of the big corporates. I used to manage the Avis account. So I know that the likes of Avis, Hertz, Enterprise, a lot of these big companies, they're all using either QL2 or RateGain, possibly Rate Highway. And there's a few other challenger companies doing it that have come along, but they probably don't have the size and the scale to do the heavy lifting that these guys are doing on a daily basis. So QL2, for instance, has a database of 120 billion data points for car, and every day they add 15 more million prices into the mix. So they're doing some heavy lifting. So all these companies are big teams in India that are constantly rebuilding the scripts, and they've developed technologies to get around the capture, because capture is one of the problems faced when rate shopping. IP detection. So a lot of the smaller companies don't realize this yet because their IPs haven't been learnt by the likes of rental cars, but they'll probably be learnt soon. So the way that companies like QL2 and RateGain get around this is they have to keep buying IPs from different IP vendors constantly and cycling through these in order to disguise themselves. Because as soon as you get recognized or they recognize which vendor's providing, they'll block lots of IPs at once and you'll lose access. So, or potentially even worse than that is you don't lose access to a site, you get spoofed. So you get actually to mirrored sites with false prices. Yeah, that's even more scary because then you're making pricing decisions on complete nonsense data. So yeah, the challenge is sometimes the websites are kind of changing the layout of the screen. So for airport shopping is really straightforward because the airport guides are always recognized, but for the downtown locations, the sites do occasionally change them in order just to keep us on our toes. And I don't know if you've noticed when you've looked at, say, rental cars, for instance, for an off-airport search, they'll probably have a list of lots of different downtown ones, and sometimes they change those descriptions, and it breaks the scripts. So it is possible. It just needs a bit more maintenance. Yeah.
We just need that we cannot do it from here.
Just not through, not through that self-built, self-flexible module. Yeah, and from that you get these sort of type results where you've got the price trends here. So this is one we did a couple of days ago for Athens, and just looked at the next, I think it was 90 days for 7-day rentals. And in this instance, we can see the brand that's in orange is seems to be raising its price mid-December, whereas everyone else is waiting until the 19th of December to raise for their high season. So I don't know if that's a tactic or a mistake, but effectively, Orange team have put themselves out of sync for 4 days when everyone else is still kind of keeping their average position. So.
Well, yes, I am.
Question. In terms of the rate that is used, is it the basic rate or the final rate?
It's the
sites now.
The retail price.
Yes,
The final price after when you click on it and then you have a quote. This is the price we are going to get on the next screen.
The airport surcharge.
Yeah.
If it's included on the display.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's not, we cannot do it.
Yeah. There's always a trade-off in how deep you go into a website to scrape the data. And unfortunately, there are some sites that add things along as you go through the booking path, but it slows down the scraping robots. So I know it's always a trade-off of how deep you go into the booking path versus how quickly you get the data. So we're often asked how quickly do our searches run? And unfortunately, there's lots of factors, which is the website, how good is the blocking on the website, what time of the day are you doing your shopping? Is it during the middle of the night? Tends to be a bit slower during daytime hours because the websites seem like they let you get away with scraping them. They do put up more blocking during the day when they've actually got paying customers they want to convert. So there are factors affecting the speed of the collection. But some of these searches would run really quickly. And typically, I think every 10 minutes, we check a depository to see if there's any new files received. And then we take about 5 minutes to process them. And then they appear in the ranking and the pricing reports.
For the one who does the Rateshop manually, you know that the card description is very complex because a lot of sites are displaying the card differently, and then it has to be consolidated on your own fleet description. So therefore, we have an AI that reads all the card descriptions we collect from all the type of vendors, and then they pre-aggregate and clean this in order to see, okay, this car will be Toyota Aygo 3-door air conditioning, or this car will be a Toyota Skoda Octavia Estate, for example. And then this is what you need then to put as your own fleet. Do you want to manage A, B, C, D car groups, EVMR, EDMR, whatever? Then you can configure it on the way you want. It doesn't work if you click on it?
Yeah. So in this instance, we've created groups. Sometimes they're created as A, B, C, D, E, or sometimes they're zip codes, sometimes they're mini echoes, etc. Sometimes we see a breakdown of automatics versus manuals. And then through this, it's simply a case of building the groups and then assigning the cars to each of the groups. So that means that when you use the filters on the pricing charts, they're a lot more accurate, that you're comparing like for like. Because in this instance, there was no car groups chosen. So it was just comparing the cheapest 7-day car rental that we found versus the cheapest on the competitors, hence the mixture of cars, but mainly small cars. So, and the reason we don't do this in advance for clients is because we find that not everyone agrees on the correct mapping of competitor cars. So we provide a tool for the clients to do it themselves. It's quite straightforward.
And we need to consolidate this fleet because then on your car, your own data that we collect from your operating system, as when we are going to build this pricing page that Noemi showed you later on, okay, for the first time we need to mix your own fleet with the market fleet. And so the only way is to make sure that we have a common reading of the data. So you have to create your own car grouping that you see on this list, which is mini, eco, whatever. It can be A, B, C, D. But it's the only common way to mix the fleet that exists on the market with your own fleet. Otherwise, it's impossible. You manage EPMR, and EPMR on the market does not exist. Okay, and even sometimes the website they display different ways. So that's the reason why we have decided to shop and to retrieve only the car descriptions. So then we can have this list, and you can assign the way you want those cars into the appropriate groups.
And I think in the future the plan is also to maybe combine some of the reports.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
So you're not jumping between. But we hope with this new module that you'll be able to, for example, check your piloting tool, look for any anomalies in the data, and then be able to rate shop them afterwards because they might be not covered by your standard profile. So it's just extra data for you to look at when you need to look at it.